Hello, everyone, and we are back. And we're back with the new style WTA show here on Betting Weekly. It's Betting Weekly WTA, and I'm delighted to say joining me is our WTA handicapper. It's Rory Jiwani. Happy to New Year, Rory. Happy Christmas. Happy holidays. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, thank you. Happy New Year to you and all our viewers. It's and listeners, of course, of the podcast. It's a very early start to the year for women's tennis. We're still in just about in 2023, although I guess if you're in Australia or New Zealand, it's already New Year. But for us, we're underway, and it's an exciting season ahead. You've got some returning stars, a couple returning from childbirth, and we've got Iga Swiatek, world number one, and we've got two tournaments straight away, and in just a couple of weeks we'll have the Australian Open. So we're hitting the ground running, and it's going to be very exciting 2024.
It is. We thought that Iga Swiatek was going to run away with it. We saw Coco Gauff, the emergence of Coco Gauff at the US Open. We saw Sabalenka. We saw Rybakina, who didn't have a great season, but she's always going to be a danger. We saw Vondrousova win at Wimbledon. So it's going to be a very interesting year in the women's game. And we've spoken many times before about Iga Swiatek being a dominant player. Does she go into this year as the dominant player still?
I think so. I think her victory at the WTA finals proved that she's the best player. She's been working on some stuff in the off season. She was very impressive. She's playing in the United Cup, the mixed team tournament in Australia at the moment, and she's been working on her serve. Her service motion is different. It's kind of a bit more rounder rather than sort of straight up and down. Probably hasn't explained it very well, but I think she's trying to get a bit more pop on her serve. We saw the tail end of last season, she was working on coming into the net a bit more. So, and she's spoken about how she wasn't that almost keen on being world number one first time round. I don't think she was ready for the tag, if you like. Whereas this time, having reclaimed it at the WTA finals in Cancun from Aryna Sabalenka, she seems much happier with that status, and it feels like she's working to go even further clear of the rest, which is always encouraging, and she's going to need to. And obviously, you've mentioned those names, but Naomi Osaka's back, which I'm really excited about. She's back from childbirth. She looks pretty good in practice. We'll get a proper view of her in Brisbane, the WTA 500 tournament, which is just getting underway. But very excited to see her back. Of course, she won 2 Australian Opens, 2 US Opens before she took her break. She did have a few sort of mental health issues as well. I remember on French Open, she left the tournament. She quit the tournament, but she seems refreshed. She's back, so it'd be very interesting to see. Obviously, Angelique Kerber's returning as well. Although she is 35, I don't expect her to be as threatening as she was before her break. But we've got the likes of Alina Svitolina, Caroline Wozniacki, who came back last season as well. So they'll have stepped up their comebacks. So it's a season where feel like there are quite a few unknowns at the start of it, and obviously they've had a break, which hasn't been that long actually. It's only been a couple of months since the WTA finals, but we're straight back into it. But hopefully we'll get some pointers towards that first Grand Slam of the season.
Not only have we got the comebacks, and there's a lot of comebacks, we've got some real young talent emerging as well. So young 16, 15-year-old kids going through. Obviously, Andreeva is the one that everyone's talking about, the absolutely unbelievable Russian talent. But we're going to come on to some names to follow in 2024 a little bit later on in the show. Just to give you a little bit of a heads up, what we're going to do this year here on Betting Weekly WTA show, each week, myself and Roy are going to be going through the outright market. So what we're going to do here is we're going to preview the draw, look in depth into the draw, look at the players that you want to follow, highlight some picks at some big prices, and follow people on the tournament winner. So Bet Rivers do offer that on their website. It's under the futures. You'll see the WTA events, and we'll be giving a pick who we think will win the tournament, progress through the tournament. As the tournament goes on our socials, we will probably have some match picks. So as the tournament goes on, we might have a bet of the day, and check out the socials. Give us a subscribe on Because We Win, and also at Bet Rivers Sportsbook on their social pages on Instagram and on Twitter, and that's where you'll see the match bet. So this show we're going to do here each week is highlighting the best value on the outright markets. And you want to remember as well, Bet Rivers are one of the only sports books across America to offer each way betting. And in tennis, each way betting is fantastic when you've got one-sided draws. And this week we do have a couple of lopsided draws. Now let's start off the action in Brisbane. Last year, we didn't have a very good year, Roy, to be fair, at least on some of our picks, but we did start off with a winner here, didn't we? We picked Sabalenka to win the tournament. She went on to win the tournament. She was a much bigger price than she is today. She's 2-1 today to replicate that and win back-to-back tournaments in Brisbane. But before we go into the betting and before we break down the draw, what are the conditions like over there in Australia and Brisbane? We've seen some action already in the round one. You've watched a bit of tennis. What do you think of the court speed?
Well, one thing to say is that Sabalenka did win the sort of corresponding tournament last year, but it was in Adelaide. So there were two Adelaide tournaments last year, and Sabalenka won the first one, and I think she was 8-1 plus 800 to win it, and she did. But now they've moved to Brisbane, and Adelaide is next week, the last week before the Australian Open. The interesting thing is that all of these warm-up tournaments, and in Australia and at Auckland, which is happening this week as well, they're all on green set, and that's the same surface as for the Australian Open. I think they took over in 2020 from Plexi Cushion, which was really quick. Green set is fairly quick, but the interesting thing, looking at last season's stats and seeing some of the early action from Brisbane, is that it's quick. And green set, it's variable because I think it's more of a sort of layer on top of whatever's underneath. So it kind of depends what's underneath as to how quick it is. And obviously you've got the conditions, the balls. So there are a lot of factors involved in the court speed. But last year, pretty much all the warm-up tournaments played a lot quicker than the Australian Open, with the exception of Hobart, which was slower. So Auckland and Adelaide 1 last year had 70% service hole percentages. Adelaide 2 had 74.6% service hole percentage, which is one of the quickest on the calendar, whereas Australian Open was only 65.7. So these tournaments, with the exception of Hobart, which I think is next week as well, all of these tournaments are quicker than the Australian Open. And watching some of the qualifiers, watching a bit of the action this morning, it's quick. I mean, the big servers are going to have a good time here. And the last previous Brisbane Internationals in 2020, which was the first year on green set, Karolina Pliskova won her third title in Brisbane. The previous two were on the quicker Plexi Cushion surface. So again, everything points to it being a tournament for the big servers and the big hitters. And I can see someone like a really good server like Aryna Sabalenka having a great time here. Sabalenka, if her serve's working, should be in her favour. Lyudmila Samsonova, big server, she's got a good chance here. But it's definitely in favour of the bigger servers. And as far as the weather's concerned, high 20s Celsius, so that equates to about low 80s Fahrenheit, mid 80s Fahrenheit. A fair bit of rain due the next couple of days. Friday's forecast looks terrible. So there could be a fair bit of disruption to the playing schedule over the next few days.
Check out the schedule, check out the odds with Bet Rivers. Let's have a look at the outright market as we stand now. But before we go on to that, we'll give you some prices and give us where positions in the draw. So in the top half of the draw, we have the tournament favourite, Sabalenka. She's the 2-1 favourite. Second favourite is the number 2 seed, Rybakina, plus 450. The two of them battled it out the early part of last year in some spectacular matches. Third favourite, then this is incredible. The third favourite here is Andreeva, the young. She's 17 now, isn't she? 17. She's a 10-1 chance to win the tournament here up against those two big hitters, powerhouses. Again, a real interesting market here. Naomi Osaka, do we really know what to expect from Osaka? She's 14-1, fourth favourite. Collins 14-1, Samsonova, you mentioned at 14-1, Kazatkina 16, Ostapenko 20, Kenning 20, and Kudermetova at 22. They are the list of betting. If we look at the draw, the top half of the draw, pit Sabalenka, and really, you look at the draw, she's got a very, very relatively on paper, a pretty easy run through to the final, really, when you think about it. Osaka is a threat. She's a wild card. Ostapenko is in there, and Azarenka is in there as well. But really, on that top half of the draw, apart from Sabalenka, there isn't really much there, is there?
I agree. I think Osaka, as I mentioned earlier, I'm very interested. I'm very interested in her for the Australian Open, actually, because she is the player. She's a player who, before her baby break, she never really did too much in the normal tournaments, but in the Slam, she'd raise her game. And I think obviously, this is her first tournament back. She'll be sort of feeling her way back. I don't expect too much from her in this tournament, but come the Australian Open, I think she's a genuine contender. I really do. But as you say, that top half, yeah, Ostapenko probably the biggest threat. Kasatkina's number five seed, Daria Kasatkina. Courts are going to be a bit quick for her. She's going to be overpowered. It's very hard to see anyone beating Sabalenka, to be honest. I mean, I've got her path to the final here. First up will be Lucia Bronzetti or Ashlyn Kruger, the American who had some really good performances on grass last year, but shouldn't be able to live with Sabalenka. Then either Danielle Collins or Lin Zhu. Kasatkina possibly in the quarterfinals, and then possibly Osaka or Ostapenko in the semis. I mean, it's not a difficult route. I think, what is her price? It's plus 200.
Yeah.
It's tempting. It is tempting. And now that all these players as well, first tournament back, they've had a bit of a break. You could see in the WTA finals that, the hard season had affected some of them. Not Swiatek, obviously, because she steamrolled everyone pretty much. But, you could see the Rybakinas and Sabalenkas sort of looked like they were feeling the effects of the season. Fresh. We saw Sabalenka win first, a bit like horse racing. We saw her win first time out last year. Every chance of her being tuned up and ready to deliver here.
Sorry, Rory, this tournament, though, this part of the year is very, very important to get to a fast start. If you look at people who've done well in the Australian Open, they've always had really good weeks. Obviously Djokovic doesn't play, so he's an exception to the rule. But usually over history, someone who does well, you've got to come out the traps fast. You've got to be slow. You can't be slow. You've got to go, because you've only got a 2-week window before the first Slam of the year starts. So coming out the traps, he's really, really fast here. So if you're looking at Osaka, she's 14-1 to win this tournament. She's only 14-1 to win the Australian Open. So if she did well here, she'd be half the price for the Australian Open. But it is unlike any other major, isn't it? This time of year, where you've got 2 weeks. You've got to come out, you've got to win, you've got to get everything primed, you've got to get ready, and you've got to go, and you've got to be in great form. So it probably does go with the form book in these tournaments here, because it's usually a 250 or a 500 event, they get shocks, but there isn't many shocks in this tournament because the players want to get back to match practice straight away.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially for someone like Rybakina, who had a funny season last season because she had a few injuries and she got to the final Australian Open, obviously lost to Sabalenka there. But, I think she got COVID in Paris or some sort of illness. She was injured later on in the season, just niggling little injuries, which stopped her going as far as she perhaps should have done. She got in Canada. She got destroyed by the schedule because there was rain and she ended up playing 2 matches in a day. And things didn't work out for her. For her, this tournament she's had a rest. Hopefully, she's back to full fitness. This is the tournament where she can really get going, you'd think. She is in that bottom half, which looks far more difficult. And I think the odds do reflect that. Especially the one I'd be worried about. I mean, early on, she shouldn't have too many problems, but potentially in the semi-final, she'd had Ludmila Samsonova or perhaps Mira Andreeva. Andreeva and Samsonova actually play in the next round, which should be very interesting. Samsonova's serve should serve her well, excuse the pun, on this surface. But Andreeva was impressive. She beat Deanna Schneider 6-3, 6-2, I think it was, in the early hours of this morning. So she's already passed her first test. I do have a bit of a doubt of Andreeva against the really powerful hitters just yet. And she could do with adding some more power to her game. She's very mobile. She's got all the shots, but she just lacks that power that the top few have. But as you say, she's only 17, so it will probably come. I think it's a bit early for her just yet, but she's definitely got huge potential. But her match with Samsonova will be interesting. If Samsonova and Rybakina meet in the semis, that would be interesting because Rybakina bizarrely has an 0-4 record against her fellow Russian. It's almost like she's facing someone a bit too similar to herself, a very big server and a big ground stroke hitter. But I'd like to see Rybakina sort of get a good run here and show that she's back to full fitness and back to form. And as you say, it is important to hit the ground running in these early tournaments.
Totally agree with you on Andreeva. I think she's a player that has a huge amount of potential, and she's certain to be a major winner. But the market has gone absolutely crazy with her, and the expectation on her young shoulders. We saw her at Wimbledon; she couldn't really live with it. She lost the plots, smashed the racket up, and I think it's a big year for her. And I would be really interested to see how they bet that Samsonova Andreeva match. If Samsonova is in these conditions is a plus money underdog, I would love to. I'd like to play that market very, very heavily. Let's have a look at the bottom half of the draw here. We've done the top half of the draw. We've got Alexandrova, we've got Serena Cristia, Kenning, Samsonova, as we mentioned, Andreeva. The market suggests it's going to be between her and Rybakina who makes the final, but I don't see that. We have Kudermetova, a very talented, who's good in these conditions. Rybakina, Mertens, Potapova, a player that I like. I think might be a little bit too quick for her, but I think I quite like what I saw of her last year. It's difficult in that bottom half of the draw, but have you sort of got anyone that you think might solve that puzzle, who might come through that bottom half?
It is tricky. It's very open. I mean, at the prices, I think, well, there's two that kind of stand out in the sort of 2000s. That's Veronika Kudermetova, who, when she's serving well, is tough to beat. And the same can be said about Ekaterina Alexandrova, who on faster surfaces is a tough opponent, although she does have that sort of thing of getting to the quarters and maybe the semis and not going any further. Although I think she did win a tournament on grass where she beat Kudermetova in the final. I think that was the one in the Netherlands, the Hertogenbosch, I think it was. But yeah, if Rybakina is on her game, she comes through. But what's the price? Plus 450.
Plus 450, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little short for my liking because she will be tested. I mean, she will get. I mean, she's likely to get either Elise Mertens or Sloane Stephens in round two. I mean, her first round match should be very easy against one of the Australians, Kimberly Burrell or Olivia Gadecki. That should be a fairly easy loosener opener for her. Then possibly Mertens, then Kudermetova in the quarterfinals, and then probably Samsonova in the semis or Andreeva in the semis. It's not the easiest of routes through compared to Sabalenka's path in the top half.
So, Rory, where's the money going? Where's the bet? What are we doing?
I think Sabalenka's a bet, you know. I don't usually like, you know, outright prices so short, but plus 200, I think she's a bet because she should have a fairly easy path through to the final, and whoever's in the final, I'd expect her to win. I just expect her to win this. I think she will be tuned up. Obviously, she's lost her number one world ranking. She's got quite a few ranking points on the line here, of course, because Adelaide won the corresponding tournament last year. So it's an important tournament for her to win, and especially ahead of the defence of her Australian Open title. I think she's even at plus 200. I think she's a bet. From the bottom half, it's tricky. It's really tricky. Maybe I just have a small each way on Kudermetova at plus 2200 because she has on these faster surfaces and when she's serving well, she is difficult to beat. And okay, she will probably face Rybakina in the quarterfinals. That could be close because, as I say, when she's serving well, she is a formidable player. And I think she's just overpriced. I mean, I think Rybakina is the most likely player to get through from the bottom half. But her price is just too short. And then there's a possibility of Samsonova in the semi-finals. That's tricky. Whereas Kudermetova at a much bigger price, I think maybe you'll get a run for your money.
I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, Rory, but there's the draw. And there is Sabalenka v Kudermetova in the final from Seeley.
No,
So,
you're not.
Yeah. And Sabalenka wins it. So there you go. The first tournament of the year, and we both agree. I don't know. That's a good. I don't know. That's good. We'll let you know next week. But Sabalenka,
Yes.
you go back to back. It's almost obviously the different venues here. She did the business for us last year. She's going to come in hot. She's, this is a tournament where people will turn around and say to you, at the start of the year, you might want to fade some favourites. I went through all the statistics on the favourites in these first two tournaments. You actually don't. You actually, there's no value either way, really. There's no advantage to be a favourite better or a underdog bet here. Shocks do not happen here because everyone has to get off. There's more shocks in the week before the French Open or the week before Wimbledon, where people are coming towards the end of it. They don't want to exert themselves too much, but they want to play tennis here. They want to have match tennis. So it's what surprise to go to the form book here. So Sabalenka is our first pick of the year to win the tournament in Brisbane. There's going to be a 1 unit. Was it 1 unit pick? Rory on Sabalenka. So, start off small. 1 unit pick on Sabalenka to win at the tournament. She's the favourite, and she's a worthy favourite in the WTA 500 event in Brisbane. Now we have another short price favourite. It looks very hard to oppose across in Auckland, where we go to a WTA 250 event this week, and that is the US Open champion Corey Goff. Now, let's give you the betting here. Corey Goff is plus 130 to win the tournament. Svitolina is $6. Bruskova is $7.50, Pavlyuchenko 11, Wozniacki is 12, Navarro 14, Martic is 18, Blinkerburn 22, and Wang is also 22 to 1. Before we break down the draw, Rory, it's going to be similar conditions here as it is in Brisbane, or is it court speed a little bit slower?
Should be similar. I think Auckland was one of the quickest last year. It was certainly quick enough. I mean, looking at my list, it's almost identical to Adelaide 1 last year. So it will be similar. It will be quick, certainly quick enough for I did watch some of the qualifiers of this one as well. And yeah, it's quick enough. And again, there aren't so many big hitters here as in, most of the big names are in Brisbane. Coco Gauff's the main big name here. You do have some very interesting wild cards, though. Emma Raducanu, this is her first tournament since April.
Raducanu,
yeah. Amanda Anisimova, she returns. She took a mental health break in May. This is her first tournament back. And Caroline Wozniacki, she's a wild card as well. Although they had a bit of a laugh at the draw because Wozniacki's facing Aryna Svitolina in the first round. And they're
combined ages, the oldest ever in the history of the WTA Tour.
Yeah, it's just the way it worked out, unfortunately. So, it's a bit of a shame. And then the winner of that probably plays Raducanu in round 2. So that's in the bottom half. In the top half, Coco Gauff she should win this easily. I mean, I can't see anyone giving her trouble. I mean, her route, quarterfinal, possibly Varvara Gracheva, who is useful on her day. In the semi-finals, possibly Emma Navarro, who's the 4th seed. She had a really good end of last year. She won the Charleston Challenger. It was either the W100. It was either the ITF W100. I think it was ITF W100. She won that at Cantor. And so she's up to sort of mid-30s in the world. Possibly Petra Martic in the semi-finals. And then looking at the bottom half, you've got Svitolina or Wozniacki or Raducanu. I mean, I'm not expecting anything from Raducanu yet.
Would you just before we just move from Raducanu, she plays qualifying Roos in the first round. I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see how you price this up because there's going to be the media attention. I mean, I'll be quite tempted to fade Raducanu in round 1 here if we can get a nice price on Roos. I don't know what your thoughts on Raducanu are on that one.
Yeah, I mean, she's had a lengthy absence. She's had injuries. Wrist injuries always tricky. I mean, Vondrousova came back from a wrist injury to win Wimbledon, which was incredible. One of my favourites, Karolina Muchova, she's sidelined with a wrist injury at the moment. She misses the Australian Open, which is a real shame. Wrist injuries. Got Laura Robson. She had wrist injuries and had to retire. Hopefully, the same fate won't befall Raducanu. We just haven't seen, since that incredible US Open triumph in 2021, we haven't seen the best of her. She's had coaching changes, injuries, and I think I said at the time to some people on Twitter, the demands of the WTA Tour are pretty intense, and it's clear they've taken their toll on her. and players have started to work her out. US Open, she was this unknown quantity. She came from nowhere and she won it. You could see in the year after that players started to work her out, and what had served her so well at Flushing Meadows just didn't really work anywhere else. It's a really interesting year for Raducanu. Can she get back to winning tournaments? I'm not sure, because I just think women's tennis is as strong as it's been for such a long time, with the returns of players like Osaka and Kerber. Svitolina last year made a really good comeback. Swiatek, Sabalenka, Rybakina. There's so much strength there. It's going to be difficult to win tournament just with the talent at the top of the game. If Roos is a price, because she has played well in the qualifiers, she's taken a couple of good names. So she's playing well. If we can get a nice price, I'd definitely be tempted by that.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see how that price up that market, head to the BetRivers website and see. But let's have a look at the outright market. Goff is in the top half of the draw, as Rory said, a very, very easy route through to the final. Gracheva, Navarro, Barry and Martic. I mean, that is pretty easy. Really. The bottom half of the draw is a little bit tougher. You might look some each way value. You've got Wang, you've got Tuzarenko, you've got Busakova, Svitolina, Wozniacki, Raducanu. It's a very, very winnable tournament for Goff, and I don't see any way that she doesn't at least make the final. Just her price is plus 130 to win this tournament. Now, a lot of people might look at that plus 130 and think, I'm not going to bet a player to win the tournament first week of the year at plus 130. I think, really, if this was, her name was Igor Swiatek in this draw, Igor Swiatek would probably be starting around about minus 150. I think at plus money, I think anything above plus money, Goff is a bet here. If you worked out her route to the final mathematically, say she was like minus 2,000, the odds you would get around about even money here. And I think it's just because it's the first tournament of the year, people are a little bit worried. Then there may be some problems, or she might go easy. But Goff is on a roll. She's the highest paid woman in sports at the moment. She's going to be going to win another major, I think, next year. And she's on a mission. She's getting better and better. So I think plus 130 in hindsight could look a massive price. So we're going for Goff as well.
Yeah, and I want to make that a 2-point bet. I mean, I think the prices only just came up just before we started this, and I have to say, I thought she'd be odds on.
Yeah,
I really thought she'd be minus money. So I think plus 130 is a bet, and it's a 2-point bet, because the bottom half, there are better players in there, and we've mentioned Svitolina, Wozniacki, Raducanu, Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova. She's on the comeback trail after lots of injuries. She's useful, but there's no one in there apart from those sort of bottom 4 matches of the draw, sort of the bottom quarter. There's a few players in there, but I still can't see them troubling Goff.
No.
Goff has had a little bit of upheaval, because her coach Pera Riba, she split with her in the sort of October. He went back to Spain, I think, and it's personal reasons. But she's still got Brad Gilbert with her. She's obviously unlocked something. She went from having a pretty ordinary first half of last year, apart from the win in Auckland, of course. Pretty ordinary sort of Wimbledon, and then after that, just suddenly winning everything almost. And so there was a big change there. I think she can carry that forward.
And winning becomes
she
a
should
habit.
have little.
Absolutely,
I can't.
You keep winning. I can't see it. I think she starts the season strong and continues where she left off. I think plus 130 is a great price.
Yep, I agree.
If you were looking for someone who she would meet in the final, who's your pick? Because I've gone for Goff, and I've gone for who I think will meet in the final. See if we get the same finalists in both tournaments. Who have you gone for? Who do you think she'll beat in the final?
Tricky. If I had to pick someone from the bottom half, it would be Pavlyuchenkova.
Wow.
She's plus 1100. You haven't got her as well, have you?
Gone for Wozniacki. I've gone for Wozniacki.
Are you on for Wozniacki? Okay.
Yeah. I've gone for Wozniacki to meet her in the final, but I think Goff wins. I tell you the bit I do like though. I mean, and I don't know if you want to put it up as a small, maybe a half-point bet as well. I think the double's a good bet at 6-1. The Sabalenka Goff double. The parlay. Let's go all in. I think the parlays. I think the parlays are cracking bet. 6-6-1. Just under. I think it's just plus.
Yeah, it would be.
Plus, yeah, I think that's an absolute cracking bet. So we're going to go for two favorites. Rory doesn't want to go for the parlay, but I would suggest that if you want to have a little small pound the parlay, go for that. We got Sabalenka and we got Goff. They are the form horses. You tend to find the form does go in the first couple of weeks in this season because everyone wants to come into the Australian Open at the peak of their form and get some matches under their belt. So, and Goff and Sabalenka are definitely the two we like here, given their routes to the final. And if you get to the final, you can hedge it if you want to hedge it, but hedging is for gardens, remember that. Just one other thing before we go, Rory. Looking for some players, couple of names for 2024, if someone's watching this, looking for someone who can have a breakthrough year, someone you would advise not necessarily going to win a tournament, but someone you should keep an eye on for match betting purposes or in the WTA, someone you think, I like what I saw of her last year and she's going to have a breakthrough.
Yeah, I think, well, not someone who's going to have a breakthrough, but I've mentioned her a couple of times already, but I do think Naomi Osaka is a player to watch, and I have backed her for the Australian Open at around sort of 20-1. I just think the way she was before her break, when she was on her game, she was almost unbeatable. So if she can recapture that, I think she'll be challenging. I mean, I don't expect her to be challenging at the French Open or at Wimbledon because she's never shown much form in either before. But in the Australian Open and US Open, she's possibly, maybe not in the Australian Open, but we'll see how the year goes. But she could be the woman to beat at the US Open. I really think now she seems more happier with herself. I think she could be, someone to keep the right side of them from in the majors at least. And I think, and the American swing, when we get Indian Wells and Miami, she's always performed pretty well there as well. So yeah, she's one there. Apart from that, it's difficult. I mean, most of them they've kind of shown their colours, haven't they? Yeah, Andreeva last season, we saw what a talent she is. Linda Noskova started out well and then faded a bit. So she's in Brisbane. Maybe she can have a strong start to the tournament, a strong start to her season. That would be good to see her get back some form. You've got the Fruhvirtova sisters, Linda and Brenda. Again, Linda really tailed off last season. Brenda has shown a lot of good form of late. Tail end of last season, she played a few played a few ITF tournaments on clay. I think she was down in South America. She won one of those tournaments. I think she's still only 16, but she is a player to watch. Aside from that, I think it is going to be the usual suspects. I think we've kind of been talking about the big three. We were talking about the big three for a little bit last season: Swiatek, Sabalenka, Rybak, and obviously Goff has joined them now. And then you still get the likes of Ostapenko, who can turn it on when she feels like it. Krejcikova can cause a surprise, Barbara Krejcikova, when she's fit. I mean, she was struggling with fitness last season. So Jess Pegula is steady. I mean, actually, although she was defeated by Katie Bolter.
Well, she was one of the players that I'm going to mention. I think Katie Bolter. The reason I mention this is because Bet Rivers had a special, and it's down off the website now. Hopefully, they'll put it back up, and it shows you could bet players to finish in the top 50, top 35, top 60, and they had Katie Bolter to finish in the top 50 of the year. And I really thought she's going to have a good year. I watched her a couple of times last year. I watched her at the US Open, and she played an epic match, and she was full of confidence. She had a really good end of the season. She started off fast. She'll pick up ranking points. And I think Katie Bolter could break into the top 30 in the world. I think she's that good. And she's beat Jess Pegula. And the other one I like was Potapova. I mentioned her before. I watched her in Miami. And she looks someone who I think will cause big problems in slower surfaces. She's got a game, but Katie Bolter is definitely someone who I think will have a fit. Hopefully the Bet Rivers will put that back up on the website. If you check out the website, you'll be able to see those specials there, but they were top 30, top 40, top 70, and to make like the top 100. And there were some really, really interesting players in them, but unfortunately by the time recording, they've taken that market down. Hopefully it goes back up, but there's some insights, Rory. Great to talk to you, mate. Really, really enjoyable stuff. Let's hopefully get off to a winning start like we did last year. And unfortunately, you might be coming on here. Look, we give you the value. The value might not sometimes be 100 to 1 or 66 to 1. The value might be plus 130. If you make something even money, it's plus 130 is value. And that's what we're trying to do here. Sabalenka and Goff certainly do look the value plays, and probably fairly the obvious plays as well. But sometimes that is the value as well. Remember, you can subscribe to our channel, Betting Weekly Studios on YouTube. Please give us a like, a review, and a subscribe on there. Thank you very much for everybody who has subscribed. Hopefully, we get some more action and more new people coming in for the tennis. Tell your friends, share this show, and let it go out there and let everyone know what we're doing here at the Bet Rivers Network. And also, you can follow us on our socials on Twitter and on Instagram at Because We Win. There you'll see all the content, not only from the tennis, but also from the soccer world as well. It's a rest week in the Premier League this weekend with the FA Cup, but the Champions League is coming up to some really juicy stages of the season, and the soccer all across Europe is really hotting up over the next few months. So you better get all the brilliant content from our soccer handicappers on there. Last thing I'll say, Rory, have a very happy New Year. It's New Year's Eve here, a few hours to go for 2023. I wish you all the very best, mate, for the year. Have a very healthy and happy 2024. And that's the same to all of your viewers as well. Thank you very much. Wish you all a happy new year. Take care, and we'll be back next week here on Betting Weekly WTA, previewing the action. I think it's still in Australia. It's Adelaide, and it's in Hobart, isn't it? So hopefully we can head there with a couple of favourite wins in the bag. Take care, everyone, and all the very best.